I will introduce our speaker for the evening, Mr. Adam Stevens, and his program title.
Well, the working title is The Modern Movement at Work.
And this is in response to Docomomo. Docomomo US has a theme every year, and this year's corporate campuses. So we are kind of falling into the month of October, but they really want us to promote hosting tours and really playing up to the theme. And so this is our response to sharing some of that theme into locale in Colorado.
All right. And I have to apologize on the front end. You ever have like one of those presentations where you're finishing the presentation 20 minutes before it's time?
Yes.
That's me today. But part of that, let's see if this will work now. Okay, it does work. Part of that is because we came up with what we were going to do for this like a week ago, and I was like, oh sure, I'll do this. But I spent several years at the beginning of my career designing office spaces. I'm familiar with the workplace. I've hung out in our various office parks and all sorts of office buildings for the years. In fact, I developed an odd talent. I became the only person in the office who could do building area measurements for office buildings. It's a very exciting real estate trick where I figure out how much more office tenants have to pay to cover the common areas in the buildings that they're renting. So I spent hours and hours drawing little polygons and sides of office buildings and figuring out what their square footages are, which shot me into all sorts of interesting buildings and places. So I thought this would be easy, so I started diving into the research. I thought I could just pluck out, like, this is the story, these are the people behind it, so on and so forth. And then I came to find that there is almost no information about the history of office complexes, office buildings, so on and so forth in the Denver area. Which is kind of surprising because particularly down south where we have the Denver Tech Center and Greenwood Plaza, those are a couple of the most notable office parks in the country, really. And there's very little out there about them. So I'm actually thinking that, I'll do this talk in a much more organized and knowledgeable fashion, maybe a year or two from now, after I think I'm going to focus on this as a research focus to actually start to put some names, whatnot to it. So Alan may actually be able to fill in the blanks here and there, but this is going to be a quick talk. So what I did today is I was like, well, I have no historic information. I do actually have a good book about just overall office parks and office complexes and things like that. I forget the title, but it's a really appropriate title for what office parks really are. And it's actually turned out to be a good book. But it doesn't really mention Denver much. Pastoral Capitalism. Which is kind of a snide title, I think, but it also really describes what is happening. So, around the country, and, some of the things that Docomomo has been focusing on this year have been office complexes, corporate headquarters around the country where, a corporation consolidated all of their offices into one campus and built really, truly incredible and progressive pieces of modern architecture. We didn't do much of that in Colorado. This photo is actually from a complex up in Loveland that Josh and I just wandered around last year, a year or two ago. This was the former Hewlett-Packard facilities. Now, it wasn't a corporate headquarters. It was more of an outpost. But it was a major campus outside of Loveland. And I'd never even heard of it before. But when we were driving past it, Josh was like, we got to stop. So we stopped and wandered around. And I was surprised security didn't try to carry us away or anything like that. Hewlett-Packard isn't in there anymore. In fact, now they're trying to separate it out so that several tenants occupy this building. And Josh, do you have a background on it? You probably have more background on it than I do.
So I should have dug into this. we were looking at developing a site that is nearby this particular plant. And so I did do a deep dive on it, but off the top of my head, I don't remember any of the information. A census, I think it's probably early 60s, if I'm remembering right, like 63.
Yes, I'm right.
But it's a massive, massive campus. And it looks just like this, completely dead. The majority of the space is empty. There's a few modern tracks up there of single family homes. There's this kind of thing that's happening. So there's a whole node of modern activity.
And it's hard to appreciate from, I didn't get great photos. It's not like I was just snapshotting with my phone while we were there. But it's hard to appreciate the scale of this building. These overhangs that we're seeing over here on the right-hand side, would you say those are 15-foot deep?
Easily. In that picture, it looks like it's 4 feet. It's easily probably 14.
Yeah, you can doors at the bottom. You can tell the scale, but my mind still reads it as that whole thing. It's just a normal size 4.
Some of them, these ones may not be the really deep ones, but there are some that are absolutely massive, like that. That's a 2-story space under that overhang. The scale of it, and I think what was interesting about walking that was the scale of it, because the facility was so big. The fact that it was all scaled up made it seem a little smaller, and I think that's why it looks this small in these photographs. But you can imagine, this thing totally abuzz, looking like GM Tech Center, all these guys, white shirts and coats and all this stuff wandering around these enormous plazas.
And there's office space on these plazas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those plazas were a series of raised ones. It nestled into a hillside. The entire building was in a gentle slope.
And the building is a big, is it an H-shaped complex?
I think so.
So we were in one side of an H-shaped complex.
Huge building. And very, very well detailed. There wasn't anything that really broke its rules. It was a very tight and neat building.
The offices or manufacturing or both?
I think it was both.
There was a mix. Yeah.
I think it was designed by Poor and Bush.
I think it was.
Moore and Bush.
But look at the spaces in these plazas. All of these rooms
It's on the
that
right
react
side.
to the wind.
It looks like it goes on forever. These are the trees back.
Massive flow.
And then here's another example that I thought about. Is anybody familiar with this building? This is just a model. It'd be better if I had a photograph of the actual construction of it. Let's see if anybody, and I'm sure Alan knows what building this is.
Is that the AT&T building?
No,
It's the roofing company.
Yeah. You're onto it.
The roofing company. I can't think of the
John Smith, though.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Currently occupied by Lockheed Martin, but it was originally built for Johns Mansfield. Yeah.
Yes.
Was that Deer Valley?
And the architect, what's the firm called? The Architects Collaborative.
It was Walter Gropius.
Yeah. So big time, big cred with this
There
building.
was a big competition for this project.
And I tried to find a photo of it. It's right behind the hogback by, where, what's the way?
So it's Deer
Yeah, it's called Deer Creek.
Creek. Yeah, that's.
It's like, what's the canyon? Watertea Canyon. It's by Watertea Canyon. Behind the hogback. It's kidney.
Which is impressive that that's hidden. That's
What year was this, Sadiq?
1970s.
22? It was on the cover of it. Touch my house.
Was it? You have to find that. The photos of it actually and I tried to find a couple of photos and then it wouldn't put it into my presentation for some reason. Very impressive because it sits on a mountainside. I mean, what's kind of hard to see is you can see they modeled the mountain back there. Like it's a spectacular building. And what it really is, it's a rare example here in Colorado, but it was as corporate headquarters were going at that time, where they were moving out of the city into the suburbs and mainly focusing on being places where corporate executives or upper management would office, is they were really almost like manor houses, like the corporate equivalent of a mansion on a huge, beautiful piece of property. Another example we kind of have of a manor house here is actually NCAR, but that's a government facility, so instead of being corporate. Here's another example, kind of like a manor house, except this isn't on a massive lot. Is anybody familiar with this building?
Party hall.
It's like the Taj Mahal.
That's what we call.
It's the same architect as the Taj Mahal, but actually it's not the Taj Mahal. This is over by Centennial Airport.
Really?
Really?
Yep.
And Kurt Fetris did it.
Yep. And I guess probably a little known fact, since people aren't really familiar with this building, is it was the Stars TV network. This is their corporate headquarters, or was. They've actually recently mostly moved out of it after being bought by Lionsgate. Lionsgate has basically moved them all to California.
Did good
But yeah, they're just kind of hidden out right next to the airport. Actually, the company that owned Stars before Lionsgate, Legacy Media, I think is what they're called, they own a little building that's next to it that's even more grand than this one. And basically, that's just their executive offices sitting right next to this building. And then, because this building is next to the airport, that company, Legacy, I think it's Legacy Media.
I think it's
Liberty Media. They actually have a hangar on the other side of the fence in the airport. So when they need to jump onto their private aircraft, they cross the street and take off. So that's
What? Don't you?
well, it's not what I'm used to, but. And here's just looking up the side of the building. This was one of my clients. This is a building that I measured. In case I don't have the numbers on me, but. Maybe 90. What's funny is that this is obviously stylistically, it's not a modern building, but architecturally it is. It's just like all modern office buildings, it's a post and beam building with a curtain wall exterior hung on it.
This is a curtain wall.
Yep. Hard to believe.
Origin curtain wall.
I don't know where this shot is taken, but this is supposed to be a construction shot of the Denver Tech Center. Probably in the late 1960s or early 1970s.
Late 50s, probably.
You think in the late 60s?
Late 60s.
As the developer of the Denver Tech Center, whose name I didn't write down, he started assembling the land for the Denver Tech Center in the 1960s.
That wasn't George Wallace. That was George Wallace.
So the context of what was happening was kind of two things coming together. One, corporations were tired of downtown. They were tired of the traffic. They were tired of the crime. Their employees didn't really want to drive down there, particularly their senior employees. These structures of companies were actually becoming more hierarchical. And so while they were fine with their lower level employees still going into the city, their upper level employees wanted to be out where they lived, which was in the pastoral context of Greenwood Village or Cherry Hills Village, for example. At the same time, Greenwood Village had a problem. They were a recently created town. All they had in it were these houses on relatively low density property and some farmland, and they were going broke. And this is the common story in a lot of suburban office park developments, is they were really spurred because of suburbs that were going broke, and they needed to expand their tax base. And they weren't going to be able to do it through more houses. So forward-looking developers like George Wallace and also like John Madden, not the football John Madden, the other ones, had the vision to start assembling land, particularly around what was then the Valley Highway or I-25, and in forward-looking in that this would be the place that companies would be going to. And that, of course, is what played out. This is a figure ground of the Denver Tech Center. You can imagine I-25 cuts through here. The Denver Tech Center is on the right, and on the left is Greenwood Plaza. Greenwood Plaza was developed by John Madden. And so what I did, having pretty much a lack of history on who was building what or what was done architecturally, I decided to just take a walk through Greenwood Village today. I just did Greenwood Plaza and took a whole bunch of pictures, so that's mainly what we're going to go through. I did bump across this ad, though. This is one of the first buildings in the Greenwood Plaza complex. It's still standing today, but doesn't look this nice. In fact, it's looking pretty run down, and is mainly being rented out to small tenants. But you can see, you know, the optimism here, even in their tagline there. We've thought of everything. And this is a picture of what the building looks like today from the adjacent light rail stop. I think I did one more picture. So this is where that building is, right next to the highway. You can still see it if you really know what you're looking for, but it's just a 2-story building. And then in the middle, they're showing 3 large buildings that are in the middle of the Greenwood Plaza complex called the Triad. And that's where John Madden kind of based themselves doing the development of the entire office part. And this is what one of the buildings in the Triad looks like. And another shot of those there. Now across the highway, this is a
precast piece. Out.
I don't think so. Not that I noticed. I did notice that the this building has precast tees, like you can see them here under this balcony here. I don't know that this one does. If they are, they're really deep on this side. It's a good question.
Because there's a really interesting Roman Wilson. I think it's Roman Wilson. Double T office building at Colorado and Florida. There's 3 of them.
That's similar to that design.
What is Cyber Park?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was T's vertical, but they're rather close together, so you appreciate these T's.
Right. Now, this is a much later project. This is in the 80s, but I just wanted to share it. It's another example of a full-out project. This is in the Denver Tech Center across the street, and this is going back to Fentress. This is one of the Fentress's projects. And only 2 of these towers got built. As you can see, it shows more than 2 here. And here's a look at what the building footprint looks like. Now, all office buildings, the reason that post them being construction are designed to be completely flexible, something that we as office designers take full advantage of. They're designed to take all of the interior walls out, except for the core elements and the columns, and completely reconfigure them. And so that's kind of a demonstration of that here. But here's another interesting thing. You know, we're out in the suburbs, where again, we're mainly building for executives, upper management, maybe some middle management. And what would you say particularly a building that has executives in it, what is the most valuable real estate in that building?
Corner.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone.
And what have they done here?
Create more corner.
They've made lots of corners. Corner office for everybody. And you see a lot of that in both the Denver Tech Center and Greenwood Plaza, where buildings have maximized the number of corners that they have in their layout. Here's a vision of what the architect envisioned them being. So only like this one and I think this one were built, and that's it. I don't know what that is actually.
It's crazy that that's just your massive scale.
Right?
It just
And what's funny is now across the street where this is here is actually housing, which was not something that was originally envisioned for the Denver Tech Center or Greenwood Plaza. So this is in Greenwood Plaza. And so if you were to ask the developers about, if you were to talk to the developers of both the Denver Tech Center and Greenwood Plaza, they would tell you that really these office parks aren't necessarily about the buildings. That wasn't the big selling point of these office parks. Really, it was about the landscape. And when you get into it, both of them are in some ways masterpieces in landscape architecture, particularly Greenwood Plaza, because they really massaged the land. They created berms. They moved water around. This looks like a lake, but really it's a detention pond. But they're using it as a scenic element. And there are, view planes through that, with groves of trees. And I took several photos of landscape features throughout the office park. This is let's call it a planned wetland, curated wetland, little canal going through. Another detention pond, but with a fountain. So that, of course, makes it nice.
Was the bees?
There were ducks in this one. I didn't get. Another office park nearby, the Inverness Office Park. I just took a picture of this because they also, throughout their park, have standard signage throughout. And so, part of what was happening in these office parks is that they were creating a curated environment. So in the same way that you buy a home in a suburban residential neighborhood and you have to follow covenants, you have to keep your lawn cut and have a certain number of trees and pay an HOA fee to keep things maintained. Well, these office parks are a huge corporate version of that. The corporation can't come in and just let their building go. And the way they manage this is instead of using an HOA, they've set up things like metropolitan districts that, then the companies in those areas have to pay extra taxes to those districts to maintain the standard signage and the roadways and the landscaping, things like that. And so that's a component of these office parks to make them attractive to companies, is that they will always look good and be well manicured. Another example of standard signage. In Greenwood Plaza and in the tech center, they have these fancy overbuilt traffic lights. They're supposed to make it, as a kid, I always thought it's supposed to make it look high tech. It's a high tech traffic light. Especially since the signs light up. That's high tech. Now, is anybody familiar with this? You probably, if you haven't,
Yeah.
if you haven't been in Denver for a long time, you probably wouldn't know this. But yes, it's a pair of office buildings with a plaza in the middle of it called Harlequin Plaza. And it is definitely a piece of postmodern landscape architecture. And unfortunately, it is no more. So we already have historic assets that are disappearing.
There used to be sculptures of Alice in Wonderland.
Yes. The Museum of Outdoor Arts, which John Madden, the developer of Greenwood Plaza, was one of the founders of the Museum of Outdoor Arts. He believed that every office building should have public art as part of its design. So there's a lot of public art throughout Greenwood Plaza, and the Museum of Outdoor Art was created to, curate and maintain the artwork throughout that park. But now they also have a collection that goes well outside of the park. And the plaza is actually sitting on top of a parking garage, an underground parking garage that connects the two buildings. The buildings were designed by Gensler, and I forget the name of the landscape architect. But supposedly he was kind of a big deal after this project. See, I wrote his name down. George Hargreaves. This is what it looks like today. Yeah. It is no longer the one I remembered as a kid. I don't know why we even went there as a kid. I remember taking a field trip to this place. Yeah,
I bet it was bizarre walking.
it was cool. I remember it being a really cool place. So a little more landscape. There's actually there's a detention pond on the other side of the building and a bridge that you actually have to go over to get to the building. And again, what's happening on the right side here? Lots and lots of corner offices. Oh, that one's out of order. Another example of signage, but this isn't an office park that never really happened. And Aurora did something similar too. They did an office park called Aurora Center Tech that has never really been particularly successful, although there are a few companies in there. And this is a random photo I threw in of office park that's actually right by Josh's house called Sheridan Park that actually has some interesting buildings in it. But it's very small compared to the Delta Tech Center. Oh, and as you can tell, I didn't get these all sorted. So this is going back to that first building in Greenwood Plaza. See, you even see that.
And access to outdoor space for each one of those private offices.
Yep. So looking at a lot of the buildings throughout the Greenwood Plaza office park and in the Denver Tech Center, the one thing that strikes me is, can anybody recite this? Otherwise I have to look it up. Corbu's 5 points of architecture. Pop quiz.
Ribbon windows, free plan. Ribbon windows, free plan. Rooftop gardens to replace what the building footprint was. And pilotis. What is 5?
I think you pretty much got them all.
Holy
Pilotis, free design of the ground plan, free design of the facade,
Yeah.
horizontal window, roof garden. It's amazing how much they rely on those 5 points in suburban office parks. That's what are we on here? Pilotis. And we have ribbon windows. More of them on a different building. And this is a free plan of the facade here as well. That one's out of order. More ribbon windows and a free plan of the facade. This is in Greenwood Plaza. This is actually a hotel that looks like it belongs in Breckenridge. More ribbon windows. Lots and lots of ribbon windows. This is in Greenwood Plaza. And can you guess why this building is called the Carrera? Yep. Its exterior is clad in marble.
Really?
What? Yep.
Do you have a close up?
I don't. I mean, I could go into my photos and close up on it. But yes.
Just want to go sit on that plaza and it's so inviting.
Yeah, there's nobody there. The only people that were there when I was taking pictures were the guys with the weed whackers and the weed blowers.
Whose building is it?
I just see that's the
Is it
problem.
occupied?
I think it is occupied, yeah. Although I don't know if it's a single tenant or multi. That's the problem. I don't know like who the original tenants of these buildings were, what their current status is, who the architect was. And the only reason I know it's called the Carrera is because they have a sign out front that says it.
Carrera? Nice.
And then I just had to take a picture of this one because this has outdoor roof areas, which we were talking about, the 5 points of architecture.
Yes. Yeah.
And brutalism can even be found in Greenwood Plaza. And I share this building just because this was one of my clients for a while, and so I have familiarity with this building. It actually works well as a brutalist building because of its wide expanses of ribbon windows. It's not as dark as you typically imagine a brutalist building being.
That's the shading needs work.
And the shading in this building works very well, actually. Here's another shot of it. Even it is on pilotis, very chunky ones, but it does have parking underneath. And that's a part of what you see a lot through Greenwood Plaza and the Denver Tech Center is this attempt to, even though it's all automobile-centric development, they have gone to great lengths to hide the automobiles. Whether it's simply hiding a parking lot behind a berm or more dramatic things like actually putting the building up on top of the parking. And this building is a mix of both. There's not enough parking underneath for everybody in the building. This building was originally built for a single tenant for co-bank, but now it has been divided into multi-tenants, which has caused all sorts of problems for this particular building. Even though in concept they were meant to be divided into multiple tenants, it's actually very hard to do in these sprawling suburban buildings. And this one I learned is particularly difficult because I had to deal with it. So, you know, that whole thing that I went back to where, you know, office tenants, we make them pay for all of the extra space in the building, the corridors and things like that. Well, this building is very inefficient. In the center of the building is an open atrium. So you need your tenants to pay for that atrium. But then also, if you want to make this a multi-tenant building, you can treat it as kind of two separate buildings tied together with an atrium. But the problem is that the way the stairs are done, this is an open atrium, which, you know, architects love doing exiting. It's actually their favorite thing to do. The fire code will not allow you to have this count as an exit stair in the middle because it's not a fireproof space. And so your exit stair options are in these cores on either side. There's also little light wells in the middle that have their own stairwells, also not fire rated, so you can't use that as an exit stair. So if we want to say multi-tenant, you know, this side, we have to have a hallway that runs all the way across so that people can access both sets of stairs on this wing. And we need the tenants to pay for that hallway. So typically when we consider an efficient building, having what we call a load factor of like 15% is pretty good. This building blew past 30% when I ran the numbers. It's a very inefficient building. So from a real estate standpoint, it's a terrible building, except as a single tenant building. But it's a huge building, and there are no tenants looking for this much space anymore.
That kind of reminded me of a similar problem. There's a building that he just went by too, that they looked at out here, like out towards school, then. And there's a couple office parks out there that kind of have like a more arts and crafts is a very strong word to use, but like a more like wooded suburban style of campus. And I think
Denver West is probably what you
yeah, I'd be very curious.
Denver West has some bizarre stuff in it.
There was one where it was 3 buildings, but they were all connected by hallways. It's the same problem. Like they couldn't get tenants because they were running into such issues with all of the connected hallways between the buildings.
Yes. And Denver West also has an issue where they have these big pyramidal roofs at the top, and there's a floor inside the pyramid.
Yes.
Which is entertaining from a building measurement standpoint. Another example of brutalism, this is actually right next door to that building as well. And postmodernism. We have one excellent example of postmodernism in Greenwood Plaza. If postmodernism is your thing, this is, you know, whatever you feel about postmodernism, I feel like this is a fantastic piece of postmodern architecture. I have no idea who designed it. I even tried to look it up. Even Alan is shaking his head. But, you know, what really makes it postmodern is notice how we basically have two buildings coming together in a central, actually open outdoor atrium. And as you get to the atrium, the facade actually peels away from the buildings, attaching the two. That's a postmodern gesture.
I'm glad. There were some Canadian architectural firms that were doing work through the Valkyries in the tech center and Greenwood College around this kind of thing. This is later. This might be
This is 80s, I believe, early 80s.
80s, mid 80s.
And I think MCI was the first tenant in this
Yeah.
building.
I feel like this is a great example of what you're saying of the concept of
Yes.
very
This one's very statement. Yes. Very much so. Plus, it has the public art.
Find
as
the
well.
AT&T Long Lines building?
Which one is that?
It's a building that Kevin Hirsch did out north.
No.
Oh, it's a huge building.
Oh, is it the one that looks like a big satellite dish in the middle?
Yeah.
No. I wanted to include that one. I forgot about that. That's like another postmodern piece.
It is.
So I also walked past this. This is housing that's under construction. You know, the idea behind these office parks was that they would, basically start as vacant land, and instead of building on speculation, they built them as demand called for it. So even in Greenwood Plaza, there's still vacant plots. In fact, right next to the Triad, there's a huge vacant piece of land between the Triad and the Landmark development. But with the office market being what it is, there's just not much demand right now. In fact, Denver has way more office space than it needs at this point. So these office parks have started turning to residential buildings to actually fill in those spaces, which has really changed the look and the character of these office parks. Before this, there was only one.
That's it.
Can't see it. It's a keyboard.
There's your keyboard on there.
Your keyboard.
It's not it.
Keyboard. So before they started building this residential in Greenwood Plaza, there was only one resident in Greenwood Plaza. I'm going to wrap it up with this fun little fact.
That was Kevin Welch. I didn't know.
Yeah.
John Madden was the only resident in the Greenwood Plaza office park. As the story goes, he was driving to work from his house in Perry Park and hit a deer. And after that, he was like, forget about this commute thing. Screw it. We're going to go live on top of a office building. And so for decades, John Madden has been living on top of this office building. And actually, I had a friend growing up whose dad worked in this building. And when I found this out, I asked my friend, did your dad know there was somebody living on the roof? And he said his dad had no idea this is somebody. But if you want to live in the roof of an office building, his place is now for sale for around $2.8 million. Yes. So John Madden actually passed away this year, but actually he had put this on the market even before he had passed away. And this is his home on top of the roof. You've got lots of glass, some dated stuff going on, but and I think this is virtual furniture, but the lights are in there. But look at the view of the Rockies.
Fantastic.
You're on top of a 3-story office building, and I mean, that's $1 million view right there. That's $1 million of the house right there.
Actually, Don Sturm built an apartment building, or condo building, on top of the parking garage. It's used to serve the time cover, and he put his own penthouse
Really?
with that building in Cherry Creek.
Huh. So there you can get a sense of the office park here. So there's his house on top of the office building. There's the Triad there in the background.
And beyond those are the two Fenchurch.
Oh yeah, these are the two Fenchurch towers we were looking at. This is a nice sum up. And actually, this is the vacant piece of land right here next to the Triad. Do you have any development ideas and some money?
And all that asphalt.
It's the suburbs.
I could get a study of not comparing, but I feel like there are so many buildings that we've studied in Colorado. Like I know Tom Nixon, we were able to take some potential inspiration of his from other prolific architects that are more nationally renowned. And like for instance, I did a lot of work in the Remax headquarters in the DTC, which is an ellipsis glass building, and that floor plan
Yeah.
was awful to work in.
Was
But
it?
ellipsis buildings, all your walls are angled.
Yes. Good luck putting square systems
Square
furniture in
anything. Yeah.
there.
So that building, for instance, reminds me a lot of the lipstick tube building that's in New York
Do we
City.
have, I have a photo in my deck here of
And it'd be interesting to do that comparative study of some of these buildings. You know?
the Remax building is in the background on the left there. Which it's interesting, they've never put their signage in the outside. Nobody told you it was their headquarters.
Well, so they had, I'm trying to know what it was. They have, it's very branded when you would at the lobby, but then since COVID, since we did the renovation of their headquarters, they were getting back floors.
No.
And now they're giving back even more floors. So now they took down all of the branded elements in the lobby, but they
Wow.
had like all the international flags. And
You think there would be a big red, white, and blue balloon? Like,
right?
I think something else to add to this, the office parks at Colorado, Denver, would be two rather unique projects. At Colorado and I-25, there's a series of precast, what looked like apartment buildings. And those were Roland Wilson developments, and they were executive office towers.
so even in fireplaces and
They have fireplaces, they have balconies,
Well, they were designed just like his apartment.
just like
Right.
his apartment.
and actually they are office condos.
Yes. that's
So
right.
they're not even rented, they are actually condos, like residential condos, but they're office condos.
Which was pretty interesting. We did we looked at one of those buildings once, look and see if it would make sense to do apartment conversion. It seemed logical. Those buildings had a transition already drawn up. There are plumbing stacks in at least the Colorado Club. We looked at, I suspect that the other one does, that building could
Makes
eventually transition into an apartment building.
It pre-built.
Makes very much sense.
And if they already have the infrastructure in there, they could even like,
The thing was, it didn't make sense for that developer that we were looking at it, because nothing would meet code. So everything had to get ripped out anyways. But I thought it was unbelievable that there was a exit strategy for that office building to transition to.
Another interesting building that I've seen a lot from the road, and I just saw interior photos of it, is in this what you have up there, Adam, in the foreground. There's that tan, like aggregate building that's really low with all.
yeah. And they did some terrible things to this one recently.
That used to be the Kodak building.
Oh.
I wondered what that building was.
It was done by
'Cause it-
John Bush.
This silver aluminum used to be dark, like this color.
Right.
And they recently put this aluminum color stuff in there, and I feel like they ruined the building when they did that.
And, even the other thing is the amenities that come with this beyond just the park-like setting. So like the Colorado Club and that executive club that Wilson did, it had a swimming pool. It had all the amenities that an apartment building would have as its added bonus.
Which there's none of these buildings have
That
swimming.
building was one of the original buildings. That were-
The Kodak building.
The other one to add in is the satellite outside of Colorado Springs,
Oh yeah.
which is
But that's purely residential and hospitality.
no, it isn't.
There's office.
It has the first level is so it's a three-pronged building with a restaurant
Yeah,
on top,
there's 3 spokes.
sitting in a golf course. The first level is retail. The next 2 levels were office,
Huh.
and then one leg of it is a hotel Yeah, and the rest is a condo.
Well, no, it's one leg was hotel, one leg was condo, and one leg was rental apartments.
Oh.
And I don't know if it's still configured that way, but that's how it was configured in this bill.
So the amenity of is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle building. Yeah.
So I'm going to abruptly stop there and we'll just do conversation because that's pretty much I decided to end with Madden's house. And here's a few more shots of it.
Are those like RV Colorado? This is the marketing shots.
These are the listing shots. Yeah, that's real estate listing.
That's front yard.
Yep.
Low maintenance.
Yeah, as long as you don't mind the drone of a couple of package units nearby.
So Adeline, continuing this research, where do you even know what that next, or like what other canvases should you add to your list?
Well, I think, there is a lot of everything. So I'd like to start by just focusing on these two office parks and like getting my head around them. And I'd love to dig into the one by Josh's house just because it's interesting. But yeah, there are, of course, countless other small office parks around town, like Denver West, and actually there's several others just around Centennial Airport. So there will be no end of things to like look into. And then there are, of course, more recent ones like, in the along the Boulder Turnpike, there's the Sun Microsystems campus, which was a like consolidated campus, but that was definitely after modernism, I would say. That's a very recent campus. And I think older than that, and I don't know much about it, is it called Data Tech? There was a hard drive company that was right by Sun Microsystems, and they had a campus out there. Also along the turnpike. There are also several buildings that I don't know a lot about that are massive. Probably manufacturing, research, things like that along the diagonal between Longmont and Boulder. That was definitely a high-tech corridor, still is to some extent these days. So lots to dig into. Also, I've been curious to kind of understand a little better the Samsonite headquarters, which Samsonite no longer occupies, but at least the portion that you can see from I-70 actually looks like a really nice modernist building. I don't know about you.
It's done by a Chicago firm, Mobile Schlossman.
Okay. Maybe we're writing these things down.
It's a charter school now, huh? They just converted to a charter.
Yeah, this is a school now. At least the office building is. That campus had a combination of like a distribution center and offices.
Alan, what's the name of the firm?
Mobile Schlossman and here. MOEEL.
And then even downtown, there's a lot to dig into, although
That's what I was just.
Alan has some coverage on downtown.
That's what I was just been taking.
Now that he can do his tour virtually, he needs to expand the breadth of it.
I think that would be a great program. There's so many here.
And just overall, the office building design, then there are lots of office
There was a
buildings.
lot of office buildings that were torn down in Skyline.
True.
At least, you would say, 5 buildings designed by Frank Brook.
So older office buildings then. And hotels.
Hotel. The Windsor Hotel being significant.
I'm not even sure I'm familiar with the Windsor Hotel. I know about the Cosmopolitan Hotel.
Windsor was on Larner Street,
Okay.
where the Windsor condominium is.
Which is not a terribly
Windsor
elegant piece of
Hotels.
architecture.
Before, was built before the Brown Palace.
Oh, wow.
Although it existed until the 1960s. Skyline
Wow.
became very decrepit. At one time, a bar presumably was paint. He snowed down.
Nice.
So the demolition contractor made something.
They weren't there with their monument.
And then I think the Albany Hotel is another one as well.
Often that's well by father. It's headquarters.
And that one, Burnham Hoyt had done a beautiful Art Deco
Yeah.
update on it.
Extremely fun.
Very nice. There's beautiful photos of it out there. I don't know anything about Marathon Oil.
Well, so it's funny. I learned about a lot of Marathon Oil when Kimber and I were talking to Sally down in Littleton. Her husband worked for Marathon Oil, and she was talking about how Marathon brought so much modern architecture to Littleton because all of these guys in that profession wanted to call Littleton because they had the big office there, a big office park. And I mean, the roots of it still can be traced to like so many buildings and companies today. Like I ended up working for an oil company that essentially is a branch of Marathon.
Huh.
That's just like evolved now to merge these, but it's
Right.
the same origination. Michelle, what's your hand up?
Hi. I worked for Marathon for 22 years and worked for 13 in that building at South Broadway. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
And most of the it's gone now. But there's most of the archives put together and are now in the Littleton Historic. Let's see, I put the book here. Littleton Historic Society Library. Anyway, I've got one of the books here, and it was definitely long and low, 1-story, custom built, with all the overhangs that you've been discussing, and built by in 1955 by, let me see, who does it say here? Where is it? Oh, it's gone now. An architect firm from Cleveland. But most of the information the architectural information, the historic information, and pictures and things, you'll be able to find at the Littleton Historical Museum. I was sitting on 80 acres on the top of the hill there, this way, and Dry Creek Road. There was nothing to the south. There was hardly anything to the east. There was very little to the west. There was a little bit to the north. And you could see Pikes from the cafeteria dining room. You could see Pikes Peak, Longs Peak, and Mount Evans.
I know where that site was because that was a big empty field for a long time until recently.
Yeah, it was 80 acres when Marathon closed that particular location in 2001, and
That's right by Wilton Atkins's.
yeah, and had a long process to decommission all of the things that were going on there, and then and the city was trying to figure out how to divvy it up, whether it was going to be office, commercial, or homes or something. There's a bunch of different uses now on that 80 acres.
I know where that site is now. Okay.
That's definitely good intel. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool.
The house that we're working on, the landmark in Littleton, her husband was one of the geoscientists at Marathon, and the house was originally built for a Marathon family. So a lot of the people that worked at Marathon Oil there at that campus had modernist houses in the area in Littleton. So it's got a really cool history, and is one of the reasons Littleton has such a great modernist collection between Marathon Oil and Martin Marietta. When you go into it, it was originally Ohio Oil, and then it turned into Marathon Oil. But yeah, it was a great campus. I have the paperwork somewhere with the architect from doing my research on the house that we're landmarking. But I saw there's a bunch of old photos of the campus in a book I have that was done as a memoir by the owner of the property that we're doing the landmark on. So it's a neat original commercial building down there.
Timber, what was the name of the person whose home you're looking at?
So the home that we're landmarking is the first female mayor of Littleton. It's Sally Parsons.
Parsons, yeah. Bob Parsons is the one that wrote, her husband is the one that wrote the book that I'm looking at, and did some talks at the Historic Museum. So yeah, we get together, the alumni from Marathon gets together a few times a year and every week for breakfast. So
That's great.
Yeah, I have a copy of that right now.
okay, good.
On loan from Sally. So it's awesome that we have it too. So you're looking at the same photos that I've seen. It's super great. And actually several of Historic Littleton's board members used to work there too. So I know a few of the people that used to work at Marathon Oil. It was a huge employer in Littleton. It really
It was. There were 300 people there most of the time. The architect was Wilbur Watson Associates of Cleveland.
I don't remember. I think I had tried to look them up, but that sounds like it was right because I think the oil company hired the architect, not someone local.
Right. Well, because we were headquartered in Findlay, Ohio.
That was a sad building to lose, but Littleton needs more density, and I would rather lose one office building than to lose a bunch of cool mid-mods personally. So that's it's a hard battle to win sometimes.
The whole office environment changed so much just before. I mean, space planning in general, that doesn't even exist. But
Yeah.
how an office worked, really, it couldn't pull them like downtown.
Sally Parsons rings a bell. She was one of the people I worked with when you were fighting I-470. She was violently against it.
Nice.
And he succeeded in making it safe. So some of the money that came out of that went to build the 16th Street Mall.
Interesting. And yeah, I mean, we've seen office development working downtown. But, what companies really wanted is, first of all, they wanted an identity. So they wanted a place where the building could be theirs. It could be a place where they're bringing their clients or, even just facing the customer. Even if the customer isn't going to their building, at least this is our face in this beautiful pastoral environment. And having, it was impossible to have a whole building downtown generally. Like you could have several floors, but then, have your identity on that building would be rare. Now, I think Quest is one of the few companies that actually had a whole building downtown, or US West as it was. And, there are other companies that have paid for naming rights to have their name on the side of a building, but you really wanted your identity going out to the suburbs was the way to do it. But also, companies from a space planning standpoint, they, for a period of time, they were really desiring larger floor plates so that they could have everybody on the same floor. And downtown just doesn't offer large floor plates. In fact, what's funny is floor plates can be too small downtown. Part of the reason Tabor 2 has never been built is because its proposed floor plate is too small to be marketable. So, every few years they propose a new Tabor 2 and it never actually gets off the ground. Even though the foundation is there. Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's in baked plywood boxes right next to the sidewalk. Yeah, those are the foundation of Tabor 2.
Foundation.
They're not all like that.
But ultimately, the floor plate is not marketable. So every time they try to build a new Tabor 2, it never happens. But now maybe will be marketable because nobody's going to the office anymore.
That's true.
Smaller floor plate offices.
Yeah.
Yeah, the office environment has changed so much.
Maybe it could be changed to a park tower of condominiums.
Yeah, we wonder why nobody's done that.
They run the math.
Organs that study high downtown the expense out at all.
Well, but like, could you put a condo building on the foundations?
Yes, I think that could be.
Store. There are times I was thrown on that very thing, and I'm not a subscriber, so I didn't be a bastard. It won't. But that, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but was the gist of it. Yeah, it's like, well, it sounds like a good idea, but it ain't. That's what happened. So
Yeah, one of the biggest issues is just the way office buildings are planned. Is they're planned to be pretty deep, and that depth just doesn't work.
Right, doesn't work for residents.
For residential when you want every room to have wind eyes to the outside. But
USC built office.
right.
Which is a shame.
Yeah. I mean, it's just real estate that's, what else are we going to do?
Except that road as well.
Right. That Roland Wilson building. That's the one. Because it was built as a residential building.
Going back to Tabor, you are right. We're looking at it on Google Maps now. This thing, you're right. Like, if I'm sure Tabor is hurting with the lack of
Tenants. Why would they just sell that so someone can develop it into housing?
I don't know. Every few years, every time we have a boom, somebody proposes something for it.
Oh.
And it never happens. And now Tabor 1 is getting how old? It's like almost 50 years old, 40 to 50 years old. So yeah, shall we adjourn? Are there more questions? More discussion? I'm enjoying it, but I spent several years of my career doing office and still entered out.
I think it's a great topic.
Yeah.
I have a list going of a downtown building. Have at least, well, specifically of like 1950s. But obviously there's like deco and others. Yeah.
Would be great to do a tech center program or a Greenwood Plaza program. I can haul people on a deaf march. We can be right.
Oh, a bike tour. That's what
We can take a pastoral death march
Yes.
or bike tour. Yeah.
trails out there.
yeah.
Yes.
Buildings are not that interesting.
No, man.
Are you kidding me? A curved building with ribbon windows made out of Carrara marble. I'd love to see that.
I'm not kidding.
But you're right. It is Villa Savoy in every way. So many of them.
Yes, they leaned heavily on Corbu in the office parks.
Which is interesting 'cause when you step up it immediately, and especially looking at Fentress's plan of that campus, it immediately reminded me of Purpose's plan of the consolidated city where everyone works. in
Yeah,
those
the thing that became the projects.
So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It's like, well, you can like that, drawing that line of there's a lot of similar principles in that concept that are being applied. Clearly not as tall.
Yeah,
But-
and not as Corbu was thinking mostly residential, but
Very small and efficient. I guess efficient's the word he would have preferred, but very
yes.
small.
And of course, that's the one way it's not Corbu is these buildings, as I talked about, are wildly inefficient. Right? They're not efficient uses of land. There's not efficient uses of office space.
And now
They're a classic example. Many of them are classic examples of 1980s exuberance.
Hell yeah.
But if you like postmodern, I'll go check out that. It's called Tuscany Plaza.
Oh.
It's cool.
It's clad with cavity. I think it is, yeah. Again, 1980s exuberance. They probably yes, they probably cleaned out a quarry. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Sorry, this wasn't a usually I have nicely organized presentations, but this one was,
Thank you. Ever good one.